Hey guys. Well, I am so disturbed by the events today that I just needed to speak the truth and use my freedom of speech because I'm disgusted that Charlie Kirk was murdered in public, assassinated for his freedom of speech. Like, he literally stood for freedom of speech. And he used his platform to allow people to debate concepts and ideas. And even though he did take his own, he stood for one side more than the other, he still allowed the others on the other side respect, courtesy, and kindness. I've never seen like a man with such integrity stand up for debate, freedom of speech, allowing us to hear each other. And he was shot in the throat, freedom of speech, wearing a shirt that said freedom. So I hope you get this, but literally, it is the one thing that we can do to avenge his murder is use your freedom of speech. And here's where I'm saying to use it, okay? Because it's really funny. I just saw a post come through on my phone about President Trump saying he's calling on all Americans to use their freedoms, their freedom of speech. And that's exactly what I'm feeling, the exact same thing. Like, speak out. But here, I want to get a little bit more specific in that what happened today, an assassin shot him from, I think they said 200 feet on the top of a building, a professional shooter, high powered rifle. That would make anyone who would ever want to stand up and speak about the truth afraid. Like, that puts fear in you because, wow, if you go speak out on conservative values or you speak against the other side, then somehow, this can happen to you. And don't get me wrong, like, there are risks involved in putting yourself out there like that, especially with just the world. But what I'm saying is something that you have been afraid to say, use your freedom of speech to say it. Now, think about where it's proper for you to say it. Like, um, for me, it's here on this, screen, and I can say these things. But what I want to say is if you speak about something that you have been afraid to say anywhere, you can write it in a journal, you can scream it out loud, you can go on a video and do it live. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you use it because it is the time right now. And that is what literally terrorists, they use fear by public displays of murder and destruction to frighten you. And this was to scare you into not being able to speak up about your values, about what's going on, whatever. So I'm going to use this opportunity and speak out about something that I have been afraid to speak out about for years. And I just want to say that, like, because I was afraid to speak out about this, because I was afraid of retaliation, because I was afraid of what these people would do to me, I have felt like imprisoned in my own voice for so long. So we have freedom of speech in this country, and we need to use it. There is a difference between having your freedom of speech and what some of these people are calling hate speech. Okay. There is literally no such thing as hate speech. Okay. There is, though, words that can be used against someone to abuse someone. Okay. Like literally abuse them. And that just doesn't happen, from saying one or two things. That is a repetitive, over and over attempt to threaten or harm by using um, um, like this illusion that someone's more powerful than you are. Okay. And that can become very abusive. But it is not saying that you believe in Jesus Christ. It is not saying that you love conservative values. It is not saying that, you don't like President Trump. You can say these things. However, when it crosses over into violence and threatening and using actual fear tactics to intimidate, then it's a problem. And so here's where I want to use my freedom of speech. I have seen so many people celebrating a public assassination and murder. I am just disgusted. And that is my freedom of speech. I am disgusted by you and by your values that you are celebrating the death of a public figure. I'm just appalled. And I liken you to a terrorist because I remember those terrorists on October 7th who were literally celebrating the murders of those beautiful women who were dancing at the music festival in Israel, bones all broken, dead in the back of a truck, men spitting on her as she's dead and celebrating. Anyone who stands for that stands for terrorism. And that is exactly why you are celebrating Charlie Kirk and his freedom of speech being silenced today. And that is absolutely sick. And you are a terrorist against the American values of freedom of speech. Okay? Deal with it. That's exactly what you're doing. You're celebrating the murder of freedom of speech. It's just absolutely wild. And if that's what you believe, then you need to go live in a country where they do not allow freedom of speech and see how you like it then. It's just crazy to me. So I just want to, have you been afraid to say because of fear or retaliation or something like that? Here's what I'm going to say. Years ago, I had a sister who had a girlfriend, and they went around to their small town in Oregon and decided to ruin the public reputation of her ex-boyfriend by telling everyone in the town who knew them that he was a RAPIST. Okay. And I literally did not believe it. I didn't believe them. I knew it was a tactic they were using to try to ruin him. And I stayed out of it as much as I could, but I had gotten to the point where I was sick and tired of watching someone be literally destroyed. His business was being destroyed, his life was being destroyed, and all because she wanted to get out of the relationship. And I didn't agree. And I thought it was disgusting. And one night, when these two people were in my home, I decided to confront her. And I decided to say, dude, enough already. Like, I know you're absolutely lying to this entire town that this person is a serious criminal. And I know that's not true. So, like, cut it out, dude. because you're embarrassing yourself. And she came at me with a like a threatening jump towards me, like she was going to physically harm me. And as soon as she did that, I physically beat her booty. Okay. And not only that, but we had to stop fighting in the middle of everything because my baby, who was, I think, 2 months old at the time, was crying and screaming. And I told this person, do not touch me while I have this baby in my hands. Do you understand? And unfortunately, she came at me again when I had my baby in my hands. And I grabbed her by the throat and threw her as hard as I could to get her away from me and my child. And I have never regretted that I did that and stood up for myself, defended myself. I mean, who would have known? All I did was speak what I thought was my opinion at the time. And I literally was attacked. And so ever since then, not only was it a physical attack, but right after that, she started calling members of my family and telling them all kinds of lies about me to get them to look at me in a bad light. And I didn't want to engage with that behavior. Unfortunately, some of those people believed it and started treating me awful. And that's fine. I mean, it just showed their true character of who they are, that they're believing gossip and lies over coming to me and speaking to me to my face and asking me. One person did. And that was cool because I was able to tell her, what was going on. But the problem was after that, I got really afraid of saying anything because of what she might do to me. And I mean, literally, the reality of it is that this person was violent. This person was manipulative. This person lied. This person used other people as arms or extensions to harm me. And I was abused by this, okay? Because it had been a very long time, years and years. And like, I just was afraid. I was just afraid, but I'm no longer afraid anymore. And when I realized that we do have freedom of speech, like I can say these things. I can say them out loud. I can do it on whatever platform I want, and it is okay. And I just want to speak this out to literally bring freedom of speech that power that it needs back. And I encourage you to do the same exact thing. Something that maybe you've been afraid to say, find some way to creatively express that because it is your freedom. I also want to talk about um, domestic violence and how that can bring so much fear about speaking out and saying that these things are going on. And like, um, I was so afraid of my ex because of a situation that had occurred. And I'm going to speak it out now because it has been hidden for so long and it really greatly harmed me. Um, and so, what happened was I had asked this person to move out of my home and he refused. And he said, I would never get him to move out of my home. And that from that moment, he would make my life so miserable that um, he was going to destroy my life. And so I believed him, but I didn't know how to get him out of my home. And so I called the police one night and I said, not 911, just the actual police. And I said, I have this person who will not leave my home. I pay all the bills and I don't know what to do. How can I get him to leave? Because now he's saying that he's going to destroy my life and he will never leave and I won't be able to force him to leave. And they said, well, you can go ahead and serve him a 30-day notice to quit. And if he does not leave at the end of the 30 days, we will come enforce that and force him to leave your home. And so I said, great. So I did that. I handed him a 30-day notice and he looked at it and laughed at me as if he wasn't going to, like, he never received it. He just laughed at it and said, I didn't receive this. And I said, okay, well, it is what it is. I called the police and they said if you don't get out without in 30 days, they will come enforce it. So I needed to go to the store and I left. And when I pulled back in my driveway, I had a huge truck and his sister and her boyfriend knocking on my car window and telling me what's happening, what's going on, like panicked. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Nothing happened. I just went to the grocery store and I got the kids a movie. What are you doing here? And she was like, well, he called us and said that you are freaking out, you're violent, you're throwing things, and he's concerned for his boys. And I was like, what? No, complete, utter lies and illusion. Never happened. But when she walked up to me and she told me this, I felt this extreme fear come over me. And I walked into the house and I saw that he had cornered my kids with bags packed while I was at the grocery store. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, you know exactly what's going on. Uh, don't make any, don't get crazy. I'm taking the kids. And I've already called the police. And I was like, for what? I just went to the grocery store. And so I panicked at that moment and I freaked out and I got on the phone with someone and I started just crying and screaming because this person was creating this illusion that I was the violent, crazy, angry person who was abusing children. Never happened. And I was like, and of course, his sister and family believed him. And I was freaking out. So at that moment, I did look a little bit Looney Tunes because I was so angry and yelling. And when the cops got there, I was crying and I was like, you cannot let him take these kids. He's lying. Nothing happened. And they're like, well, obviously there is a situation going on. So we're going to let him take the kids. And I lost it because I knew he had no actual concern or care for them. This was his sick, twisted game to start to destroy my mental health and my life. And that was such a problem. And so I they allowed him to take him and I was disgusted with his sister that she took my child out of my hands and took him to her house as he was screaming bloody murder. Like, talk about the trauma that you just caused a child. It's insane. And like, he doesn't have to remember. He knows the feeling that he felt and he has no way to express that himself. And so you've just seriously harmed a baby. Well, he was like 2 at the time. And I literally was like, I will never forgive this woman for doing this. I think it is disgusting because she absolutely knew that this person was a violent individual. She knew it. She had experienced it. He had done it to her multiple times. And she still went along with this, oh, she's the violent one. I don't care if you didn't know, maybe you shouldn't have even gotten involved then, you know? Like, not your place, dude. Sorry. Nope. That's my opinion, and I didn't like it. And, you did that thinking you were doing something good for a child when it literally caused him extreme harm. So sick, 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 sick. Um, I also want to talk about how schools treat children. And I just want to speak out about this because I am just using my freedom of speech right now. And I am so incredibly disturbed by events that are going on at my daughter's school right now. And my daughter hurt her head. She got a concussion, and she has been having symptoms from that concussion ever since. And uh, she was being taken care of by the nurse, but for quite a while, she has been literally saying how every time she'll call me and say that she's come in for Tylenol or something like that, she's saying how, you know, oh, it just seems like she comes in every day at the same time. And it just seems like she's very smart about, what she's doing and how she's getting out of class and things like that. Well, we have a doctor's orders stating that she still is having concussion symptoms and can go in anytime to lay down or take Tylenol or whatever. And this has been going on since last May. And so she has a brand new teacher. And I don't know what has been going on, but this teacher is literally like causing situations to where, you know, my kid is like, hey, I need to go to the nurse. And he's like, no, I know you're just using it as an excuse to get out of math. And uh, don't get me wrong, my kid is not perfect, and she has done some things where she was supposed to be in the bathroom and they found her out socializing and things like that. But at the same time, this is different. This is her medical orders. And so my kid has been coming home with severe mental health problems because issues, and she's saying that she doesn't feel heard. She feels helpless, like she's really having a hard time with headaches and dizziness, and she can't focus at school. And she's supposed to be able to be let go to the nurse to get help, and they're not helping her. They're making her feel, she says every time she tries, they make her feel like she's lying. Like, they don't say you're lying, but they'll say other things that, like, where she's like, uh, they tell her she's making an excuse or trying to get out of doing her academics or something like that. And, I want to say this, like, she had been telling me this since the beginning of school. And it's not that I didn't believe her, but I do know where she can do things that are not, she can get in trouble. Like, she, so I take it all with a grain of salt, and I listen, but I also know that she can be a girl. And so she had been telling me very clearly that she feels like her teacher doesn't trust her, doesn't believe her, and is not letting her get the care that she needs. And we just had like a conference or whatever, and I got kind of a very similar vibe going on. And I just instantly believed her. And what I had witnessed is that She went from being a kid who was super excited to constantly be in school, constantly be happy to be there, loving the activities, to someone who is crying every day and she doesn't want to be there anymore and saying things like, I hate school and I would like to be homeschooled and I don't want to go. And, things like this. It's like her emotional mental health did like a 180. And I started speaking out about it, and I went to the principal today and I said my piece. And, you know, I think that not allowing our kids to be in a harmful environment like that is very important for their emotional and mental health. And, you know, there is that. That's what I want to say, like about um, uh, emotional mental health. Like, if you are being super offended by speech, okay, then there is probably some emotional insecurities that need to be dealt with. But like in this case, it's gaslighting, right? Because she's saying, I don't feel good. I need to go to the nurse. And they're saying, no, you're just making excuses to get out of math. And she's beside herself, like starts getting dizzy, starts not feeling good, comes home crying, like doesn't want to go anymore. And that's like, she knows what she feels and she's being told that that's not what she feels. And it's like, whoa, what? That's not cool. Like, I can't even imagine being forced to continue to be in that situation, because after it happening so much, you would go like cross over into some mental illness to where you are extremely rageful at the school, you know? And it's like, hello. I mean, hello. And so I'm, just taking her out of school for the moment, to not put her back in that situation continuously. And we'll see. But I don't know. Um, I mean, I've been in those situations, and those people don't tend to get any better. And they tend to not be able to, if they're not doing it directly, they find ways to do it through others or whatever. So, my deal is to just my feeling is to completely remove her from the situation. But that is ongoing. And so I don't know what's going to go on with that. But I am just sick, so sick that we in this country have our literally our basic freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of weapons, right to bear arms. And I do not believe that any of those freedoms should be infringed upon by fear of, if you speak out, you're going to face violence, you're going to face danger, you're going to face retaliation, you're going to face people, hurting you. And it's just really sad that there are people out there who believe that they can take a life of someone. That's not on our freedoms list. That's not there. Sorry, you do not have the right to murder someone because of anything. And I know how bad these things can hurt. And I think where we have erred is literally our freedom of expression. that is like a superpower that you have to be able to get that hurt out of you, get that rage out, right? And so, freedom of expression or creative self expression, speaking, writing, singing, dancing, uncensored. This is what I mean, completely uncensored. That is where we have this power to get this pain out. And I understand not agreeing with someone's opinions. That's so fine. But taking it over into threatening and actual violence and murder is just not how we do things in America. We just don't. Like, go figure out how to get your issues out. I go to therapy. I mean, I got lots of issues. I go to therapy and get them out. And I'm just so sad that someone feels that they have the right to create fear in the United States by murdering someone who spoke on his beliefs, his values, our laws. He really did educate a lot too. I mean, really educated people about our Constitution. He wasn't just like, I hate everything that's opposite. No, he really was there to try to educate. And I believe that's why he was in schools, because maybe he, realized that they are not teaching us the basic understandings of our constitutional freedoms. Like, what? And so he's like, maybe if I can just throw in some true education, that maybe people can understand where they have freedom and where they don't. I understand that people can retaliate, people can be violent, people can come after you. You have to accept those risks. And I believe that he did. And so it's just really sad that it's just sad. I'm so really devastated because I loved watching and hearing him. Yeah, it was, that's very sad. So this is the superpower. Go out there, use your creative expression in some way, shape, or form to speak something that you have been in fear of speaking out for or against or just neutral. It doesn't matter. You have the right to speak that out. And, I just want to say something else too. I guess I have a lot to say. Everything that happened to Israel is an absolute disgrace. It is a disgrace that innocent civilian lives were horrifyingly taken. And we have people in this country that support that. No. Okay? I know, I get it. I understand why they're being supported, because they believe that it is this voice of oppression that they're supporting, and that at any means they should take, their freedom by violence or whatever. First of all, they are not oppressed. Nope. Sorry, not even close. They're terrorists. They use killing and slaughtering of innocent people. Oh, and by the way, continuing 2 years later, to hold hostages and starving them, which is sick. It's unbelievable that anyone supports this. Is that your freedom? I don't know exactly. But what I do know is that it is the most vile thing that I've ever witnessed. And the sheer fact that more people aren't outraged about these people that actually murder people and think that they're justified in some way. There is no justification for that. Okay. It's called go within yourself and deal with your problems, deal with your issues, deal with what you're not handling, because that's why all this violence comes out, you know? And if you think about where we have freedom and laws in this country, right? There's one thing America does not stand for, and that is using fear to get what you want by terrorizing or murdering or destroying or whatever. There is no justification for that. These people are so angry and bitter inside. They are rageful at something that they have felt powerless from. And they absolutely could be victims of the same type of thing that they're now doing to others. But when does this cycle of that stop? Like, when does anyone see the cycle of this violence ending? Because it won't, because they're teaching their kids the same exact beliefs and values to blindly murder these people. So where does it stop? It has to stop with the individual who stops themselves and says, you know what? I want to heal this within me that wants to go out ragefully and murder. Why is this in me? And if you use the name of like religion and stuff like that, that's just a total cover that gives you your reason to harm people. It's just so crazy. So stop the cycle of violence in your own life. By how? By going within and asking yourself, how do I heal this pain? How do I get past this struggle? And the answer will come to you and you'll know exactly what to do. That's it. Zoe, hold on, okay? So go tell Evan. Thanks, honey. Sorry, my kid's like, your dog's puking. But freedom of speech is so vitally important for our country to survive. It means uncensored speech. That means like being able to express yourself uncensored so that you're not afraid to say what you really truly want to say inside. Anyway, God bless Charlie Kirk and his family. It is devastating. So have a good night. And I'm just literally speaking healing over his family to allow themselves to feel this grief and express it in a healthy, positive way. Allow yourself to feel the grief because we all experience loss. But how do we deal with that? Good questions. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye.